All right, there you go. 3-minute trailer, not bad. Hello and welcome to the Podawakens presents Chronological Clone Wars. My name is Jordan. With me on this journey for his first watch and my second watch is Logan Stump. How are you, Logan?
Hello there. I am doing well. Just got over a stomach bug, and so this is a really good start back into real life again.
Is this real life?
Yeah,
Podcasting?
Is this real life? Yeah. In a galaxy far, far away, Jordan.
Yeah. So it's good to have you on this journey. Just to make everyone aware, I did not force Logan to do this. He came to me after our post-credit scenes and was like, I want to watch the Clone Wars. What if we did this every single week? And I was like, that sounds good. I wanted to rewatch it, right? And I never had the, sometimes you want to rewatch something, you just keep putting it off because you're not forced to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Well, Logan's forcing me to rewatch this, so I am rewatching it. My wife will be watching alongside me for her first time. So I'm really excited to get into this and get your thoughts on the Clone Wars. And we're doing it a little non-traditionally, I would say. If people missed the trailer, we are doing this, as the episode says, chronologically, chronological Clone Wars. And we're following the StarWars.com order. I will put that link in the show notes as well for people that want to just have it ahead of time if they want to know like what's next week and stuff like that. I think most people would probably start, if they weren't doing it chronologically, they'd probably start with the movie. I feel like most people are going to start with the movie, or if they don't know there's a movie, they're just going to start with episode 1 of season 1 of the show, and that's how they're going to experience it. I think that way can be confusing. I do want to stress why I think it's best to do it chronologically. Like Logan just came to me and said, let's do the Clone Wars. I said, even better, let's do it chronologically. Because I, as somebody that's been in that position that watched it not chronologically, because this was before streaming at times when I would watch this. So I had season 1 DVD. I had the season 2 Blu-ray. So my watch order was just the discs. Right. And when I'm watching it on the discs, I was not, the internet was still trying to figure out the order anyway. I would say it was probably like I remember people discussing it and I'm like, well, I'm not going to flip into this disc and then put in this disc. I'm just going to watch it this way. And with streaming now, it's so easy to just scroll to season 2, press episode 16, then scroll and press episode 1, season 1, episode 16. So I think now is the best time, but there were some bits in this where, let's say, they don't really come out right away and say this episode takes place well before the show. But these two do. These two take place before Ahsoka is introduced. These 2 episodes take place before the movie. And I just want to say, no spoilers here, but I guess for Logan, this planet that they're on, Christophsis, is where the movie takes place. So why I've ordered them this way, or why the website ordered them this way, I guess, is because it is building up to those movie things. The conflict that happens in the movie. And the way they do the show, though, is very... they kind of just drop you right in, right? There's not a lot of, like, introduction. It's a lot of just kind of and I kind of like the way they do this. A lot of kids shows do this, I would say, cartoons. Like I remember, if you watch the first episode of Batman the animated series, it's just a normal Batman episode. It's not like I'm Batman because my parents died. Like they don't go into that type of stuff. In this show, even if you started at like episode 1, is not like the Clone Wars started because of this thing. Like they just kind of drop you right in. And I think part of that is for syndication purposes. That way, if just an episode comes on, you're just like, oh, okay, like this is what I'm watching. But just to give a little background about the show, this show started in 2008. The movie was released in 2008. I remember the news, I think it was like 2006 or 7 that they started saying they're working on this. And I watched a few episodes on Cartoon Network when it first premiered. But again, this is before I had like a DVR. So this was like, if I caught it, I saw it. If I didn't catch it, I'm hoping for a rerun or something, you know? It's just crazy how fast times have changed just in the last 15 years, even when you talk about television airing. But Logan, what was your first experience of like just being told about the Clone Wars or maybe hearing about it? Do you remember when it first came on and you're just like, I'm not interested? Or was it like you hear later, like, oh, this show's really good?
Yeah, I think it wasn't until later that I found out that it was so good. I do remember it coming out because I remember that would have been I would have been still in high school, which is that's wild to think that it
Same.
was 2008. When I looked it up today, I was like 2008. That's crazy because I mean I think that would have been a sophomore in high school. So I don't know. It was a freshman or sophomore, and but I do remember it. I remember it coming on TV. I remember ads for it, and I remember being like, well, that's intriguing because Nolan and I, my brother, we were obsessed with Phantom Menace growing up. It was the one that we had
Good
seen in
choice.
theater.
Good choice.
Yeah, it was the one we had seen in theater first, obviously, and then that sparked my interest in the whole Star Wars world, I guess, the universe. Because really, I mean, we hadn't seen the others. My aunt owned all of them on DVD. She has like this huge DVD library. She's like, "You've got to watch these." I remember taking them back home after Christmas one year, and I remember watching them, binge watching all of them. But Phantom Menace will always hold, I know with you too, a special place in your heart. And I think people our age, especially, just because it's that movie that you remember. It's one of the only movies that I really remember going to when I was younger, which is really cool. I remember that in Spider-Man for some reason. But
I remember seeing Spider-Man for sure.
yeah,
I didn't see Phantom Menace in theaters. So this was back in the day, you know, when like my parents like would only take us to a couple movies a year,
yeah,
right? So like 99, I don't even know what I would have seen. Toy Story 2, I think
yeah,
was 98 or 99, so somewhere around there. Um yeah, we just didn't see it then. But you know, I saw Attack of the Clones in theaters. I did not see this movie in theaters. The Clone Wars movie that's next week. I did not see that in theaters. Um 2008, I didn't see much movies in theater 2008, actually. I didn't even see Iron Man in theaters 2008. So I don't know what I was doing that year.
Jordan took a hiatus. He was
Order of
waiting
the
for Wars
Phoenix,
to
I
come
think.
out.
It was probably the
I was
movie I
gonna
got to
say,
see. That was it.
all the Harry Potter movies I remember going to. Although I will say, like as a teenager, I didn't go to a ton of movies just because it wasn't the cool thing to do, right? Like you
Well,
didn't go, like
for
you
me,
kind of
I
did,
live in
but
the middle of nowhere. Like
that's
I would
true,
have to get a ride, and my parents weren't always taking us to the movies.
right?
Like I don't want to. They're nice parents. I don't want to say
Yeah,
anything bad with that. But it's just like once I started like dating my wife and then
hmm
having my own spending money, did I actually like go to the movies a lot more than I used to.
right. And I think you, out of all my friends, are more cinematically inclined. You spend more time in a movie theater than I think
Yeah.
most of my friends combined. So no,
Combined. That makes me feel bad.
no, you should feel good. Like it's cool. Like it's such a great experience, and I think an experience that obviously is taking a hit with streaming. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I just remember this. I remember these commercials, Jordan. I remember the Clone War commercials because I remember the battle droids, and the battle droids were the ones that we had tons of battle droids. Like my mom used to get so annoyed because we just buy battle droids every time we'd go anywhere.
That's
We were
good.
just
Those type of
obsessed.
toys you can't have too many of because like you
Right.
could be like, I'm building an
Yeah,
army of the
exactly.
B1 battle droid.
Yep, like the clones, like the Ewoks, like
Hmm.
you could buy them and you were safe to say like you couldn't have two Darth Mauls. Like why would you want two
Right.
Darth Mauls? That didn't make any sense. So yeah, we would buy those and I remember us trying to build our own like clone army as well. But the clone
Hmm.
army was not as big of as an obsession, I think, because battle droids were just funny, I thought.
Roger, Roger. Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So I think that's good background on our experiences with the show as it was coming out. I think I'll be able to tell you, Logan, when we get to the episode, I remember for sure watching at my grandmother's in the basement while my cousins wanted me to play, and I'm like, the Clone Wars are on. When we get to that episode, I think I'll be able to point it out and say, this is the one. because I can remember parts of it. And it's like the for some reason that episode, which wasn't a big deal, it was a huge political episode. It wasn't like it was like a Senate based episode. It was not a like action episode, but for some reason that episode stuck with me, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to point it out when I get to it again.
It's funny that you say that because my ex-girlfriend back in high school, I was going to college, and it was still my hometown, and she had twin brothers that were 9 and 10, like right around the age, like the sweet spot, right? Where the imaginations run wild, you still believe in everything. And they were obsessed with Clone Wars. So you know how like it became. Clone Wars just became like its own channel. Like they just ran it nonstop, and it was just played nonstop. And I can remember going over because I can't remember. Did Disney Channel end up with it?
No, Cartoon Network had
Was it just Cartoon? Okay. I couldn't remember who owned it, but I just remember it was like nonstop. But I remember specifically thinking, wow, this is weird. This is all out of order. Like this is so like it's from different like it's
Little did you know that was probably the airing order.
Yes. No, it was. It was. I guarantee you it was because I remember being confused because we'd go over there and it was during the summer. So we'd just go hang out in their playroom and it was this huge room. And I just remember the boys going crazy, jumping around and reenacting it as it's going on because they'd seen it 150 times. But you know how they were in the summer. They played those things. They didn't have any new content. So it just continuously played on TV. But I do remember that was a big obsession. And I remember it's the generation right below ours that are obsessed with the Clone Wars.
And for some people, that is their Star Wars. It was like the first thing they saw of it. It's the first thing they loved of it. And then, you know, those people are now grown up.
Yeah.
And they're watching, you know, Ahsoka,
right.
which you just watched. And it's hidden for them because
it's
they're
so
like,
cool.
This is the person I grew up with, you know? So, yeah.
It is weird because, like, our generation before us were the ones that saw the original scroll through in the theater and they thought it was the most fascinating thing. I remember my cousin, he's 40, like mid 40s, and he's like, it was the wildest experience. He goes, I mean, this was back in the day when you didn't go to movies that much, but you went, like, he goes, we were there every weekend again and again and again. And it was just to see that opening
and they played longer back then, you know, like they would re-release movies a lot more. Like in 77, Star Wars comes out, probably summer of 78. It's back out again for people to go see again. I wish they did that more often now. Like I finally got to see my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future, in theaters for Back to the Future Day. They released it, but I'm like, do that more often. Like I want to see the second one. I want to see the third one in theaters. I've seen Empire Strikes Back in theaters. I've seen Return of the Jedi in theaters. Like put A New Hope back out in theaters. Put Phantom Menace in theaters again. You know, like that type of stuff. Let's do it. Let's just do that, please. I want to see movies on the big screen. Okay, so we're talking season 2, episode 16, Cat and Mouse, and season 1, episode 16, Hidden Enemy. And Logan, I just want to get your thoughts on the start of these Clone Wars episodes because the way that it works, right, is there's no opening crawl. They do a little, I don't know, platitude maybe at the beginning of the little saying at the beginning, and then an upbeat type of like tempo on the Clone Wars title, and then we kind of get like a radio host, right, saying like on the planet Christophsis, you know, and it just goes into what's going on. Did that like throw you? Did you like how, I mean, because obviously kids are not going to read the crawl the whole time, so they kind of figured out, I guess, we need to do something different for this and kind of jazz it up a bit. But did that kind of like throw you off at all? Were you digging the vibe of that? Just your thoughts generally on that.
You know, for one, obviously Star Wars hits all sorts of generations. Like, look at us, we're 30 years old and we watch it. And so I don't think saying that an audience is particular pointed out during, but like I imagine this was pointed out for kids that are coming home after school, especially. But no, I think it was brilliant. Like I thought, like you said, it all makes sense. The kid's not going to want to. I remember when I was little, I had a hard time reading those crawls. Right, I was kind of like, okay, like it's cool, but like, come on, this thing's so slow. As you get older, you know, you appreciate those kind of things. But yeah, no, I really do like it. I kind of like that radio host kind of thing where it's, you know, because you know the galaxy, and especially as we've got more expansion on it, they've had radio shows, they've got different elements in which they communicate. So like, it is cool how they kind of. They nod to the original crawls, but they don't, you know, overdo it. And it's in the same font. They continuously do that, which is fun. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the upbeat kind of entrance for Clone Wars.
Yeah, and the narrator is Tom Kane, who unfortunately had a stroke in 2020. So he's not able to really voice act anymore. So he's no longer able to voice act due to the stroke. But he's got such a distinct voice. He will also voice Yoda in the series. And in this episode as well, he voices Admiral Yularen, who is the admiral that is on Anakin's team here, who sounds almost the same exact voice of the narrator. So just wanted to point that out. But okay, so Cat and Mouse, we'll start with this one, was directed by Kyle Dunleavy, written by Brian Larson. This episode premiered 13 years ago, March 26, 2010. And its description on Disney Plus, anyway, is Obi-Wan and Anakin must deliver troops to Christophsis. So this was your first experience here with the Clone Wars. What do you think of this first episode as a whole before we kind of dive into more moments in it?
The first thing I noticed was it felt very Star Warsy, and by that, like, even though it's done in I guess CGI and cartoon, like it still has like the cuts and like even the spaceships as
Yeah,
they
the
go
wipes
in.
and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it still has that weird feel to it, and as they're like the clones are moving around carrying cargo and stuff, like it still has it's wild to me. It's like they really did a nice job of making sure that when they go into an animation that it was more about capturing the real feel before they even did anything else. Like that's what it felt like, and they did a fantastic job. And it's really cool because I mean, they've done it like some of these other movies and shows haven't been able to do it. They've been able to create and CGI these characters to look like the characters that we've grown up watching. So those were my first takeaways, that everybody looked exactly like he looked like Hayden Christensen. Like that's just
Yeah.
what Anakin looks like. So no, that was really cool. But yeah, that's the first thing that was jaw dropping, how cool it was to see animation look like that. They make the video games look like that too, for Star Wars, but just the cutscenes and stuff, that different things. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed.
I was thinking the same thing because I forgot like how prevalent like it felt like George Lucas Star Wars is what I'll say. Like you said, the wipes, the fades, like the transitions from scene to scene were like watching any Star Wars movie done by George Lucas. And then and he had such a hand in this show too that it is can't be overstated. Of course, this is where Dave Filoni gets his start in the Star Wars universe. We'll be reading his name a bit over the course of these weeks. As he is like one of the creators of Ahsoka, and we will, now he's moving into having his own live action movie. So like we're kind of seeing the start of his journey into this, where he really learned from George Lucas a whole bunch of stuff. But like you said, the models are very distinct, but yet you can tell who they are just by one look. You see Obi-Wan and you're like, that's Obi-Wan. There's no like person that you're looking at like, who is this supposed to be? Because they nail the look. Even if it's not like photorealistic, the model you just know automatically like, oh, that's Obi-Wan, that's Anakin, that's the droids look like the normal droids. They're not too stylized. They look pretty, similar. But yeah, so that's something that I really dig how they do this too. One thing I think I really like too, especially these two episodes, very mature tone. Like this was not like you said, they probably didn't uh, call out a generation that they were aiming for, but usually a lot of people look at animation and they say, "Oh, that's a kid's show." And I mean, the second episode deals with a traitor doing all this stuff. This episode, was full of war strategy, right? Like you're sitting there thinking, I'm sure a kid is some of this stuff's going over their head a bit, but when I was able to figure out where Anakin's going with it too. Like when the general, what the other general Trench, right? The spider tarantula guy, he, as soon as he says like, they say like, oh, let's fire the torpedoes, and they're like, well, we'd have to pull down our shields. I was like, I know exactly where Anakin's going with this. He's going to try to get them to lower those shields, to fire at them, and then he's able to get them right back now that their shields are down. And just being able to see, we never saw this, Logan, but we got to hear Obi-Wan in episode 4 say like how good of a pilot and fighting in the Clone Wars Anakin was. And we get to see his strategy. We get to see him be more than just I hate sand, which I don't want to call out that line too much because I don't actually hate it the way people do. But
what, sand? I hate sand so much.
I do hate sand. I don't hate the line. But in my opinion, like being able to see Anakin be more than just what he was, almost like a romantic lead in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and getting to flesh out his character a bit more, I think, is a huge positive of the show over the course of the years that it was on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And as we've gotten further in, and I'm sure we'll allude to his role going forward in live action stuff now that they brought Hayden back into the fold.
Yeah,
it's just so much better. Like it's like they've corrected course on. It was just terrible writing, I thought, for Hayden. Like it just didn't fit what he wanted to do and what he needed to do, I think. Which is probably the criticism of the first couple of movies there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do. I think what you said, Jordan, like they're blowing up ships. Like this is intense. And then the second one's really intense with traitors and bribery. So
yeah,
it had a much more, like I was expecting, like, okay, like I think this will be. I was like, no, this is 100% what Star Wars is all about. I'm ready for different elements to this, them drinking in the bars and stuff. I was like, this is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, there will be some seedy episodes as we go. I do want to say there will be some very kiddie episodes, I will say. Okay, so as we go through this journey, and one reason why I think I like Rebels more than the Clone Wars is Rebels really focuses on just our Rebel group. But this show, we will get episodes like this where we focus on Anakin and Obi-Wan. And then we'll get episodes like the second one where Anakin and Obi-Wan take a little bit of a backseat and we're focusing on Cody and Rex. And then there's going to be some episodes where it's a Jar Jar episode. And that's going to be hammy. He's going to be over the top. He's going to be, tripping all over the place. And then we have some episodes that are focused on the droids. Or like I said earlier, you're going to get a Padme episode where it's just Senate politics. So like this show is all over the place. So this viewing order will definitely help, I think, a bit in that regard too. But kind of all setting the stage here. So the main thing what Trench is supposed to be doing is blockading people from getting to the surface as Senator Bail Organa is on the ground on Christophsis doing some, I don't know, humanitarian work. I don't know. He's a senator. I don't know why he's on the ground, but he is. And it's not even his planet, but he's there. And they're trying to stop them from getting the supplies, which is what Anakin's cloaked ship is supposed to be doing, delivering supplies. But one thing I really liked about this is before Obi-Wan arrives with the cloaked ship, Anakin's already engaging with Trench. And Obi-Wan arrives and he's, one of them, I think it was Cody, says that like Anakin is engaged, or he's like, and Anakin, Obi-Wan says like, when I explicitly told him not to engage, he's like, that sounds about right. Like that was just, it sums up their relationship so much.
Yeah, it definitely has that, like, it has that feel of just Anakin going rogue because Anakin's so good at what he does and he knows that, but he's too confident. And I mean, he even gets questioned by the commander, right? That he's like, what are you doing? Like he said, wow, that was cool what you did. Like you're still stepping out into this world of where you're not quite ready for it. Which Obi-Wan was always had to. I always did wonder that, Jordan, though. Like I know we've talked about it maybe some, but Obi-Wan could have relaxed a little bit. Like I think part of it's like, take it a little bit easy because I guess the precarious situation they get into and how fragile Anakin ends up being. But
his ego,
Anakin's
ego.
Yes,
but I think his ego might be so fractured and fragile because he keeps being told not to do what he's good at. Like true. that would probably piss me off too. Like Logan, if I was really good at playing football, right? Or let's say I'm very good at throwing the ball at football, but they keep making me do these wildcat formations or running the ball, which I'm also good at, but I know I could do better. I could understand being like, look, I'm frustrated. I know I can throw the ball. Why are you making me run all the time? Um, that's kind of how Anakin feels. I can deliver the thing fine. I can deliver the supplies, but I can also take this guy out who we thought was dead already, but it turns out he's just been in hiding and he's one of the top, I don't know, admirals or generals, whatever he is supposed to be, in the separatist army. He's the separatist strategist. Let me take him out, Obi-Wan, and we kind of get that too when, Mace in episode 3 is like, you'll be on the council, but not granted rank of master. It's like, why am I on the council if I'm not a master? If I'm good enough to be a master, if I'm good enough to be on the council, I should be good enough to be a master. And that's the kind of thing I think that always undermines him, that makes him upset. We get a little bit more playful versions of it in this show, I think, but there will be times where, you can kind of see where he's frustrated. And why. And it doesn't come across as whiny as much in the show because we're going to get that over, 7 seasons of a TV show. I like this move here, and it was very Star Wars, like you said, when he's blowing up the ship. It reminds me of, I'm trying to think what scene. It might remind me of the scene in Phantom Menace. So in Phantom Menace, there's a scene when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are on the blockade ship and they're supposed to be negotiating, and they shoot the ship that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon arrived in. And the way it's like, the person's like trying to turn on the shields. She's like, shields, and then you see inside the cockpit when she's saying that, but then when it blows up, it like cuts out and you see the blow up. That's kind of how it reminded me of, like, you see the torpedoes coming towards the cockpit where Trench is, and then it like cuts to outside of it and you see it like take out the command deck where he's sitting and stuff. So just even the way it's directed, it was very live action of Star Wars. But yeah, so this episode was only like 26 minutes. This, Anakin kind of had his way about it, where he was able to disobey orders, still get everything done, and kind of point to Obi-Wan and say, "Told you so." Another thing I really liked is when we have Bail Organa sending a message to Obi-Wan, and he says, "General Kenobi, you are our only hope." That kind of stuff is the fun parts of Star Wars. Little callbacks like that.
Yeah, no, that was amazing because I was literally about to text you about it. I forgot, obviously, but that was like my favorite quote of the the 2 episodes that we watched.
Yeah, we watched 2 seasons.
Yeah, we watched 2. I could have kept going. Like, I was just like, I'm gonna just keep going. But then I always try to leave them for Sunday, so I'm
so you have something to do.
Recency, and I've got something to do in the morning because in the morning, there's not anything going on sports wise. But I really did like that. I thought that was very good in which I will say the other thing that they did well too with this one is that, like, I noticed is when they play a lot with Anakin's like shadows in his eyes, and like it across his face, like it literally had that feel. It had that, even that dark, like when Hayden's got that look in his eyes, when it kind of pans over and Hayden's gone, kind of that dark feeling, that the anger that he feels inside. They do a really good job of that, even if it's CGI too. I was like, it's amazing how well that this is done. In 2008, like, this is nuts. Like, it just blows me away that the CGI and just kind of that, that animation style is so good and so accurate to what we see in the movies.
And the one thing that, like, George just made this show. Like, it wasn't like ordered by the Cartoon Network. George is like, I'm making this show. All right. Nobody's going to stop me from making the show. I have billions of dollars. I'm making the show. And then, like, Cartoon Network heard about it because George is going to be looking to put it on somewhere. And they're like, oh, we'll take it. Like, the guy watched a few episodes, like, at Lucasfilm, and was like, yeah, I'll buy this. So it wasn't even like, if it had gotten canceled by Cartoon Network at some point, George would have just continued making this and just put it somewhere. He would have found somewhere to put it. So that's like the funny part about this is like he had like no care in the world. I think he had completed like 39 episodes before it was even sold. He was like I really admire him for that. Just being like, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm just gonna make this thing. I don't even know where I'm gonna put it, but I'm making the thing. Nowadays, a lot of franchises are in the hands of big conglomerates anyway, where they're gonna put it on their platform. So like this, when they brought it back for season 7, Disney Plus is like, we're putting it on Disney Plus. Nowadays, there's not a lot of like franchises like this where it's owned by somebody. Unfortunately, this is like the last one that was, I think, where like one person held the complete rights to something and just was able to make his own story like this. Yeah, now they're all kind of bought by somebody.
Especially for that long of a period of time.
Yeah, from the 70s to 2012. He owned everything.
Because I know a lot of people go, well, J.K. Rowling. Well, J.K. Rowling didn't own a lot of the rights to her stuff after a certain amount of time. So
she owns all the books in like the world.
Yeah.
But like the movie, she has no control over. Like she can only be like, if I'm selling you the rights to the movie, I need input on this. Yep. George just wrote the movie. Nobody had faith in it. And he's like, all right, then I keep all the rights for sequels. And they were like, fine, we don't think there's going to be any. Pretty much, And he's like, I get all the toy rights. And they're like, fine, there's not going to be a market for toys. And then that made him all of his money.
Because Tolkien didn't own any of his stuff, did he? Like after, like I would imagine the books, but.
Yeah, he owns the books in the world. The estate is the one that like somehow somebody got the rights to Lord of the Rings. And like when they made the movies, New Line Cinema and WB bought the rights from the person that had it before. So the estate wasn't a part of the movie. So they're not actually big fans of the Peter Jackson films. The estate. The estate did sell the rights to Amazon for the new show. And they do have input on that show. But they don't own everything the way that like George owned everything Star Wars until he sold Lucasfilm. But yeah, so first episode, Cat and Mouse. It was actually season 2, episode 16, but this is the first chronological episode as we're building to this Christophsis mission that we're gonna see in the movie here. Let's move on. I guess anything else on this one before we move on to Hidden Enemy?
But yeah, no, Jordan. I think one thing that was interesting because you mentioned it, and I'm getting it from StarWars.com. Early in production, the dreaded Admiral Trench was known as Taranch in reference to his tarantula-like appearance. So when you said that, I was like, "That's pretty cool."
And his little clicking sounds all the time.
Yeah, I was like, "What is that?" Because somebody else makes that noise too, right? Somebody else clicks like that. I can't remember who it is.
Does.
It's in.
It reminds me of does Boss Nass like from Jar Jar's?
That's what I was thinking. Yes, something? He does click. Yes,
he does like that.
Yes,
and then
yeah, yes, that's who it is. I was like, who is it that does it? Because I couldn't remember who it was. Yeah, no, that's 100% it. Yeah, because I was like, that's very reminiscent of somebody, but I don't remember who it was. But yeah, Jordan, nice job. You hit that. I didn't know if you knew that little fact, but I'd read that in the fun facts for the episode. I was like, dang, he hit that on the head because I couldn't figure out what it was. I was like, I mean, it looks like a spider, but I was like, I don't know what the thing is.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move on to season 1, episode 16, The Hidden Enemy, which was directed by Stuart Lee and written by Drew Z. Greenberg. It aired February 6, 2009 on the Cartoon Network. And the description on Disney Plus says, Anakin and Obi-Wan discover evidence of a traitor in their ranks. And this episode actually has its own Wikipedia article, which the other one did not have. But this one was pretty interesting. I think I like this one more than the other one, actually. I really like Captain Rex and Commander Cody, so being able to see them kind of get, I would say, the most of the screen time in this. Anakin and Obi-Wan are there, obviously, but like the people that are figuring out who the traitor is like a Detective Hardy Boys episode of Cody and Rex just going around trying to figure out who the traitor is. What's also funny is that, of course, Cody will later betray Obi-Wan due to Order 66
Yes.
on Revenge of the Sith. So I quite like the fact that they were so appalled by this traitor when they're going to betray them later. But of course, that's a little different. If you've ever wondered how they easily flip a switch and betray the Jedi, Logan, good thing to tell you that by the time we get to like season 5 or 6, they have actual huge explanation on what causes Order 66 and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to get to those episodes too, because those are some of the best episodes of the show. But yeah, so this episode, just your thoughts, general thoughts before we dive into some more plot and stuff of this one, but of this episode. Did you like it more than the first one, or was you more a fan of the space battle in the last one?
No, I think this one was really good. I would like this one better than the other one, but only really because I mean, even like you said, even though we got to wait for a couple seasons to get into that arc of Order 66, this really did have a good feel to it as far as explaining as to why the clones kind of feel the way that they do, and why that switch gets flipped. Because there's moments, and we'll get to it, but there's a moment towards the end where they mention exactly why it is that he becomes a traitor, this person. So yeah, no, I really like this episode. I thought it was really well done, and we get a new character that I didn't know before, so that was pretty cool, as far as I guess a Sith. But
Oh yeah. I wrote
yeah,
this down. Yeah, Asajj Ventress.
yeah,
This is the first appearance of her in the timeline. I guess I don't know episode wise if that's her first one, because I have not watched them in a while, and being able to see these in chronological order. Asajj Ventress, yes, she says she has a master. Do you have any thoughts on who her master is at the time?
I'm trying to think. It wouldn't be Doku, would it?
It is
Dooku.
Dooku. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to continue to call him Dooku.
Turn off the city game and
I
pay
know.
um,
Dooku, yes, that's what I
yes,
was
no,
guessing.
you're right. She is
Cool.
Dooku's apprentice.
Yeah,
So
it just made sense timeline, but I was like,
yeah,
maybe it's not. Maybe
tons of
it's yes.
episodes will focus on her and his relationship as well. The bad thing is, so this show did get canceled by Disney when it first came over. They wanted their own show on Disney Plus. They didn't on Disney XD at Rebels. They didn't want this show to keep airing on Cartoon Network. So they kind of put a halt to that. And they were already working on some great episodes that focus on the end of Asajj Ventress's work, arc that won't make it to air. But they did write a book that continued the storyline for her and wrapped it up, which I did read. And it's a really, really good book, actually. I actually listened to the audiobook. Sorry. But yes, it was a really good audiobook. I think they got the same person that voiced her in the show, too. If not, it's like really close to her voice in the show. It's pretty good. But yeah, so we get a lightsaber battle with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Asajj Ventress. Now, Ventress was actually, let me see if I can find some background on her whole character, because she was created originally for the cartoon Clone Wars. And I don't mean this one. I mean like the little Jendi Tartalovsky Clone Wars, which was also on Cartoon Network, but they were like 3-minute episodes. Do you remember the show at all? I'm
No.
gonna show it. They also have it on Disney Plus, but where is? All right, it's not letting me share that to my screen. Hold on. Let me open it in this tab.
Wow, she She was a slave at one point in her life, a Jedi Padawan, an assassin of the Sith, a Night Sister, and a bounty hunter. So she's done it all.
Yeah. So it's this show. It was on around the time of like
Yeah, I remember that.
before Revenge of the Sith aired. So 2003 to 2005 this show was on, and I remember like now this is not like canon anymore, I don't think. But it was again like 5-minute, 2-minute episodes. Done by the guy that did Samurai Jack, which is Jendi Tartakovsky. But yeah, so this was kind of like the first time of doing the Clone Wars, and then they were like, oh, we're gonna make like a CG version of it, but they're not like beholding themselves to the same stories in it. So it was not like a full on thing. But something that's interesting about the creation of the character is before Count Dooku was developed, the art department developed a villainess as the potential main antagonist, and it kind of looked like Asajj Ventress. And then, so then the Clone Wars cartoon kind of added her as being in apprentice of Dooku. She did also appear in the video game Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront 2. She was like a DLC character that you'd be able to play as. Though it doesn't show it on here, but I remember her being like, if you buy the pack of it, you would be able to play as her. So yeah, kind of crazy that they just kind of introduce her as if you're supposed to know who she is. But you were probably like, I don't know who she is. And she's just like already talking to them like she's had run-ins with them.
Yeah.
We are starting off with, again, the way that this show is kind of handled is just kind of starting off with, we're in the middle of the Clone Wars. It's not taking place like right after Attack of the Clones. We don't get any of those moments of like the end of Attack. Like Anakin's not like, I'm back from my honeymoon, let's fight. Like he's, just already as a general in this point. But yeah, she is from Dathomir. She is a Night Sister as well. And they'll explore that for sure in this show. Which your first experience with Night Sisters were on Jedi Fallen Order?
Fallen Order, yep.
Yeah, and then you got to see them in Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Where they appear again.
It's really cool because I mean I'm fascinated with them because I think that they've just got an interesting. Because Balin is he technically part of their, what would they call, like, is he like a male version of them, or what is he?
No, Balin is not. Well, Darth Maul is actually from the same planet.
Okay,
he's from Dathomir, so he's like the male version of Night Sisters, I guess.
Okay, because I didn't know what Night Sisters, obviously, yes, Fallen Order. Because there's two of them that you face in Fallen Order, I believe.
Yeah, one of them joins your party. Marin is a Night Sister.
Right. So, no, it's fascinating. And I love Dathomir. Like, it just, it is one of my favorite planets. So, just to see people from, and then, like you said, Jordan, like, you knew that this person had obviously had run-ins and also knew what she was doing because she's wielding double lightsabers. And I was like, this can't be good. She stabs the floor. I'm like, well, that's a different kind of take of, I've never seen that before. So that was cool.
Yeah, she just stabbed it and like made them fall through. Like,
it was nuts.
She was pretty pretty smart.
She was.
Yeah, and what's funny too is like when they're in the locker room type thing for the clones.
Yeah.
There is a pinup poster. There's a few of them. One of them is like a Twi'lek. One of them looks like the handmaiden version of Padme.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I don't know if it's supposed to be Padme or if they're just like I don't know if there's like this some sort of calendar out there for handmaidens from Naboo, but she's wearing the same exact thing that all the handmaidens wear from Naboo, and they have her like pinned up. That's really funny how that's like something you wouldn't think is in a kid show, that they have like pinup posters here.
But they the kids would never realize that. Like they would just be like, oh, and if they did, they'd just be like, oh, look, it's Padme, or like
or somebody that looks like her. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're not thinking it could be a calendar, like a Sports Illustrated photo shoot.
Yeah. I just think that's so funny. They're
What
like, here,
December
put this
looks like.
handmaiden thing on, snapping pictures.
Right.
Yeah, but you said about it with the clones, right? We kind of get a little bit of background on why Slick was his name, was uh the traitor, right? He says
Mhm.
he because they kind of phrase it as like you're letting down your brothers, right? You're betraying your clones. And he's like, no, I love my brothers, and that's why I'm doing this. You guys are the ones forcing us into this battle where we have no say. We're almost like slaves, type of commentary is what he's making. And I think it's a really interesting way to look at it because it's not something that's very explored in the movies. But Logan, these people were made to just die in war, right? That's what
Yeah.
these are living people. They're not droids that are being sent out like the separatists are doing. You could even say it's definitely less humane having a clone army than droid army, right?
Mhm.
Like, and these are the good guys in the war. Again, it's a pretty heavy topic for something that's aimed at 10, 12 year olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
What's your
think.
thoughts on why he was he making sense? Like, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it pitches a good idea of like, and it's one that really I don't think we tackle too much. Like I think we tackle obviously a lot of artificial intelligence and robot armies and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and
Mm-hmm.
having where like what if they had human sentiment and human feelings and like they could empathize and sympathize with people. Well, I think that's what you get with clones, right? Because clones are technically people that are just cloned biologically and they're created in test tubes and they're able to kind of create. I mean, these are people that are created, and that's the idea of clones, and that they got feelings, and the fact that they feel that they are slaves, like they are 100% slaves, like it's part of the Jedi order to kind of figure out how to use them and implement them in battle, and they use them as they will, and they all look alike, and they're made to look alike, and I think that there's this dystopian kind of feel to it as well, where it's they don't have identity, they struggle with identity, and when they start to identify them as different people, and I think giving them each different names, I mean that really helps, because in the show I was confused as hell half the time, because like which one's got I look for armor, but just like in the clones, I mean, but yeah, I think ultimately when he says that our brothers have always been slaves to the Jedi Order, he's not wrong. Like it's 100% correct. They're killing machines is basically what they're made to be. And the
Yeah.
Jedi never really. Cody's the only one that you have like kind of this connection with, as you watch through some of these movies and now TV show. But yeah, no, I think that he makes perfect sense, and it was one of my favorite lines because it's kind of like they kind of have that same thing that Anakin's kind of feeling, where don't forget about us, right? We're humans too. We have feelings. You
Right.
can't just
Right.
put that aside.
Yeah, it's a villain that is doing things that you're like, oh, maybe I'm on his side. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe probably doesn't go about it the best way by going to the separatists and giving
Hmm.
information, but he's totally right, like you said, about what is happening. Or like you said, they've all been slaves. He's doing it for his brothers, he says. And I kind of like this idea, and like you said, in the movies, we don't really have any clone that we're identifying with. In this show, I'm happy to say that we will have clones that you will get to know by name, and they will have their own distinct personalities that you will start to realize, like, hey, I like this clone. I don't like this clone. Like that's the kind of the fun thing that we're getting to do with this. And they're not all just Django. They're not just all Django. They have their own thoughts, their feelings, their dreams. His dream is to no longer be in the war as part of just being ordered around by Jedi who was born and raised to do just one thing. And I guess your thoughts on this idea that they all call each other brother. I think it's a very fun thing. They see each other as brothers because not only do they look alike, but they've been living together. They've been raised together. They have to work together. I think it's really cool that instead of just saying my clone, they're always like, our brothers, my brother. I think
Yeah.
that's really cool.
You know who else calls themselves a brother? The Jedi, or sister, because a lot of times you'll have Obi-Wan will say,
And
"You were my
Anakin,
brother,
yeah.
Anakin," right? They do. They have it's a family kind of feel. Like they are very family in feel to because there's not really love and connection in between the Jedi. It's more of that we're in this together. for one cause kind of thing. And I think that's the same way that the clones feel. They're kind of built to think like that, where we're a brotherhood, and we protect each other, and we're not supposed to turn on each other and betray one another, because then once there's crack in the armor, right, and the whole suit's exposed. So again, I think that, yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. I love that it's the brotherhood, and I think you made a good point that there's an emphasis on the brotherhood. And whenever you say brotherhood, it just has a different meaning, right? You've got teams that use that. You've got groups of people that use that. I know there's like fraternity, sororities. It's that brotherhood, that sisterhood, a bond that can't be broken, kind of thing. Because family is typically a bond that can't be broken.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what the idea is typically supposed to be when you're like, we're part of a brotherhood, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
Even though some people do have bad relationship with their family where they will cut people out and stuff,
right.
But like most of the time, your family is your family, no matter what they do, what they've done. You're like, well, he's my brother, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, it's, this guy took it a little too far with what he was doing for his brother. But,
yeah.
But we can understand. I like that it wasn't like a cartoonish idea of like why he was betraying him. Oh, because I believe in the separatist ideals. It was like, I just don't want to be a slave, pretty much, to what you guys are telling me to do. Which is understandable. I think we would probably feel the same if we were raised to just go out there and die for somebody. That's their whole life. And to be honest, they're not that old, right? They have accelerated age, too. So they're a little maybe immature, too, that having to deal with this type of thing. All right. Anything else about this episode? Is there anything I missed or anything you had written down that you wanted to say?
I will say Anakin does a lot of very Anakin things again. I like when he zip lines across the other building. It seems like something. It always seemed like Anakin was always trying to, like, there are times where I think Obi-Wan gets into like these predicaments where he's not quite thought it all through. Like Obi-Wan's kind of, he's thought enough through it, but then it's like, oh crap, like. Or like he gets into binds that he doesn't see coming, where Anakin seems very much aware of everything.
They reference that in Attack of the Clones when he saves them at one point, and or he mentions saving them on this one thing, and Obi-Wan's like, that one doesn't count or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. And I love when he gets over there and Obi-Wan's like, how'd you even get over here? He's like, I improvised or whatever. Like, it is very Anakin. And
because Obi-Wan plays by the book, like 100%. He is that black and white, plays by the book. Obi-Wan is very much that, where I think Qui-Gon had a little bit more of like, he thought more, I can rule break. And then you've got Luke who can rule break. But I think it's an interesting dynamic because there's some Jedi, like I feel like even Ahsoka's more rule following. And I think maybe some of the others.
You'll see.
So, right. That I know of. But she seems to be
in Ahsoka. She's a little bit more rule following. In this, she's going to take a little bit more after her master. The point where you said about Obi-Wan being more rule following, Qui-Gon maybe not. We totally see that in Phantom Menace, right? Qui-Gon is having plans to do stuff, and Obi-Wan's kind of pushing back, like, wait, the masters, the council just said this thing, and Qui-Gon's like, well, F them, I'm doing this type of thing.
Qui-Gon's, dude, I'm your master, I do what I want.
Yeah, and that's what, like, I think Anakin kind of has that in him too, which is funny. And when you look at what Qui-Gon's master was, Dooku, you're kind of falling into Obi-Wan's really the only one that follows rules when it comes to these guys.
Yeah.
And
Luke is absolutely off the rule book. Like, dude,
out there he's going in force choking the people in Jabba's palace. Okay. Well, that wraps up these two episodes. But so overall thoughts, Logan. Better than you thought it was going to be? What's your consensus as we head into the film?
Yeah, I think what's cool is that I came into it knowing that I've always heard really good things about it from age groups of all different times. But yeah, no, I mean, 100% better than I thought it would be. And then just kind of looking at the reviews as we go forward on IMDb, like all the episodes going forward and into the later seasons, which you don't typically see. I mean, they're above 7.8s, and like people really like this show. So I'm interested to kind of see the direction in which it's headed. And I I've heard that, kind of building into the end of the show and building into Rebels as well. Like these two shows are two of the best Star Wars shows that they've done. So I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm really interested to kind of see the direction in which it heads because I love the idea that they're going into more of these battles that we didn't get to see.
Yeah, yeah, this is it'll be really interesting because next week we're going to be talking about the movie Star Wars: The Clone Wars film, directed by Dave Filoni, and uh, this actually recently made an appearance in Ahsoka when she's going through that episode 5 when she is in the world between worlds and seeing Anakin again. She mentions, "Oh, this is our first mission together on Christophsis." Like this is what they're referring to, and how you've already seen that. You're going to get a little bit more background on that, and just I haven't watched the film in years and years and years, so I'm really excited to kind of dive back into it. One thing that's interesting about the movie is because it was being released as a movie, it's really just 3 episodes kind of plugged together, 3 or 4 episodes together. One thing that's really interesting is that Samuel L. Jackson and Christopher Lee do not voice their characters in the show, but Christopher Lee will voice Dooku in the film, and Samuel L. Jackson voices Mace in the film. It's the only time they voice their characters in this animated version. So it is going to be feeling like a big actual film when you hear those voices coming out of their characters. And Kevin Kiner, who does the music for this show and the movie, he did Ahsoka's music, so he's really involved with these characters as well, and he does really good music as well. So I'm really excited about revisiting this movie and having some fun with it. I didn't see this one in theaters, so I'm excited for this. It says it's 98 minutes. It's listed separately on Disney Plus for people that are following along. So it's not just like the first 4 episodes or 3 episodes of the show. You actually have to look for Clone Wars film, and then make sure you watch that as you're following along with us.
Oh yeah, and another weird thing. If you're looking for Clone Wars to follow along to, it says Clone Wars final season on the cover. I did
Yeah,
notice
because
that,
it puts the latest thumbnail
yes,
on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it looks really weird because it's like, wait, what? And I was like, where did it go? Like they take it off, and I was so confused. And then I clicked on it, and then it unveils all the other seasons. But yeah, it's really weird
that's a
because
good point. I should have
just says final season
when I was telling you. Because I thought it was weird too. I was watching it like,
Weird.
It says final season. I understood though, like click this, do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty funny how they have it listed. I think they list it that way so that way they can put Disney Plus original on it, because they can't probably put the Disney Plus
That's a good
original
point.
logo on the rest of the Clone Wars. I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so there you go. There you have it. Those are the first 2 episodes as we watch chronologically. And then we will watch the film. That's the only thing we'll talk about in the next episode. And then to make it more confusing, we have 2 season 3 episodes the week after, and then a season 1 episode 1. So we are jumping all around. I'll make sure I put that link in the notes as well, so people can maybe look ahead if they want to watch ahead any further. All right. Well, thank you, Logan, for bringing this idea up. I'm having fun revisiting these, and I'm really excited for you to kind of experience this. Like you said, later in the show, even, this is a show that most people say, like, season 1 takes a bit to get going. The rest of the seasons really start, picking it up from there. And I guess that's also a plus of being able to bounce around in the chronological order. You get to see some really great episodes before some of those episodes where they're finding their feet still.
Yep, 100%. No, it's been good so far, so I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of them.
All right. Well, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at podawakens. You can email us podawakens@gmail.com. And we will catch you all next time for Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated film.